where news comes first. This is WECT News at 11.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for staying up late with us. I'm Frances Weller.
And I'm John Evans. New at 11 tonight, neighbors remember a tragic night that forever changed their neighborhood.
3 years ago, an EF3 twister touched down in the area around Sunset Beach. It destroyed several homes in the Ocean Ridge community, killing 3 people. WECT's Delaney Tarpley spoke to 2 women who lived through that terrifying night. Delaney, what do they remember about it 3 years later?
Well, Fran, they say they remember the devastation, torn up homes, downed trees, and the loss of their neighbors. But more than that, they say they remember the strength and generosity of their community, who all came together to help in the days after.
There's a lot of bad stuff going on in the world, but I'll tell you, on February 15th, 3 years ago, we saw the best of humanity.
Driving around Ocean Ridge Plantation, you would never know what the community went through in 2021.
I remember the lightning and the sounds of the thunder were very weird. They were not ordinary.
An EF3 tornado touched down the night of Valentine's Day, damaging more than 150 homes and killing 3 people. Ocean Ridge residents Liz Weinhold and Donna Wald say their community was unrecognizable.
At first, it looked devastating. It was devastating.
When you go to bed around here, you expect to wake up in your own bed. And when we all woke up the next morning and found out that 3 of our residents had died, we were just in awe.
The only signs of the losses today, these 2 stone benches, honoring those who died.
They were very active in the community.
And 2 empty lots where one home was lifted by the tornado and thrown into another. The only thing left behind, 1 mailbox. But Wald says what she remembers most is the community rallying together in the aftermath.
You had ladies throwing trees over their shoulders. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. That whole experience showed the resolve of our community and the hopefulness, the optimism.
Wald was the chairperson of the Social Activities Committee, which has now been passed on to her dear friend Weinhold.
Well, it'll probably never be what it was, but what it is now is just fine. It just reinforced to all of us how important community is.
2 women brought closer together by tragedy. They say it's just one example of the camaraderie the whole neighborhood now has.
I feel like after going through that, there's nobody in the community that's a stranger.
In the aftermath of that tornado, the community had a candlelight vigil for the victims and commemorated the 1-year anniversary. Weinhold, the current social activities chairperson, says they didn't make plans to commemorate the anniversary this year. While she says she'll always remember that day, she also says the community is ready to move forward and look to the future.
All right. Thanks, Delaney.